Game 3 on the way. P's and B's, pretty please. SK Gaming on the left-hand side. First pick, first ban, etc., etc. I love the choices. We talked about, you know, the on her just to swag on them, but also the CC immune ult was really important. There was one particular play that, I don't know, Zapman still has the mechanics, and being able to utilize those CC immune ults, very, very important. And again, an SK team win. We're talking about Zap. We're talking about Paul. But I think everybody contributed. That's the bigger picture to take home here. LG across the way, 0-2 at the moment. You can see Xaliea trying to remember what was going on. SK will continue picking the Batman first and foremost. LG, what's got to give?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And SK, or
Love
at
it.
least Bellair, has absolutely been in love with his Camazotz pick, but this time around the response of the Raijin is a rather good one, but at the same time, in Game 1, I do recollect SK having Hover, that Habois, and with Luminosity taking the Raijin for themselves, I can't help but feel like that is a slight opening for Paul to look for one of his signature gods now, because the burst damage is ideal against a god that's so situated in his ultimate and in a lot of the casting of his abilities.
At the same time, closing that gap can be tough for Hebo. Raijin, very long range, Habois, melee mage for the most part. Still be giving thought to it. And again, when you're up 2-0, I think this is what you do. You take your signature pick, you go for it. If we win this one 3-1 because my Hebo got farmed, cool. But guess what? I can go 15-0 again. Let's try it. I'm absolutely here for SK.
Well, I think the other thing about a Habois, if it does end up coming through for SK, is that there is a lot of damage already online, I feel, between just the Camazotz, Hachiman, and Fafnir alone. If I'm Luminosity, though, in the 3rd, 4th banning phase, I don't necessarily feel as though the Habois is as much of a threat as in the first 3 pick spans, but when the Fafnir gets locked away, it immediately jumps things more towards that auto-attack base style of play that a lot of teams have been kind of leaning towards in Season 6, so maybe look towards like the Bakasura or the Mercuries even.
And, you know, the Habois is going to get banned out here. Players forget, maybe not players, but I think people might forget that while Paul's Hebo is very celebrated, Paul's Chronos is also very, very celebrated. Chronos would fit into this composition pretty nicely with the Fafnir. It would work out. Love the tech from LG, though. Serqet here. The ultimate will kind of negate a lot of Camazotz's sustain, which is a really big deal.
Could also be the Uller pick, and that's a pretty heavy flex choice, but I would expect it to be for Paul in the mid lane. Has a lot of burst damage to kind of match up to that of Raijin, and also fares pretty well when there's already a Fafnir on the board, but it would kind of put SK into a little bit of a weird position as to their solo laner then, I think, needing to go something that's like either a Guardian or a True Mage, and that could be a tough option for Bellair, considering that Luminosity have already been trying to punish him.
LG banned out the Hebo and the Zhang, two very Paul-centric characters. SK, on the other hand, looking towards the Guardians. No Terra, no Sylvanas. Raijin, likely the mid lane. We have seen some jungle Raijin, but I'm just putting that out there. Serqet, likely a jungler. We have seen some support in solo lane. Just putting that out there. I realistically think that Raijin will be a choice for Oceans.
Robin also still on the board for Sam here, and Robin, I think, has a pretty decent time when looking to tackle the Raijin, at least, because a lot of my emphasis for when I'm at least looking at SK is it feels like they're very driven towards trying to punish the mid jungle. And when Mollusk has been shut down, and I don't want to say that he's necessarily been like completely factored out in the past couple of games, but Mollusk definitely has not been able to just move around the map as easily as Sam has.
He certainly hasn't had the games that we saw him have just last week. SK go at the Vulcan for the mid lane. Kind of interesting. Paul's played this Vulcan and has not really seen much success with it. So I like this again with the 2-0 situation. I do think, I never want to call this a throwaway game, but you can sort of go deeper into your pocket, if you will, and try some of the stuff that hasn't worked out and really prove, you know, why didn't this work out? Was it just a bad day? Is it a bad strategy overall? So I like the choice to see SK go to some things that haven't worked out for them in the past, even though they think they might, here in a 2-0 situation.
Well, right now it's all down to the wire for Mollusk to decide Right, excuse me, I shouldn't say Mollusk because I see the Serqet, and in my brain, I think because it's Kiki and friends that there is some possibility for this to be a support Serqet, although that is
a solo Serqet.
It's a fairly unlikely situation, though.
I mean, FineOK made a highlight reel out of his solo Serqet just the other day, and if anyone's going to follow in those footsteps, Xaliea would be the one. He brought out plenty of assassin solos once upon a time, so I'm going to give you that. I think that there is plenty of opportunity for Mollusk to not play this Serqet. LG having a good time figuring it out.
Well, if it wasn't for the fact that Raijin's already locked in.
Athena.
Well, there's the Athena I was asking for. I think in game 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, just last game I was wondering if that Athena would ever come about, but it seems as though Kiki and friends might have been holding on to it until their last chance for a comeback.
So you think this is Athena for Kiki?
I would prefer to see it on Kiki here, but I'm not sold that it's for Kiki. I just think that Xaliea is better on the Sobek, and Sobek holds down solo lane a little bit better as well.
We'll find out. LG fighting to keep their match alive. SK Gaming trying to go home a little bit early. John and Anatoly on the call. Let's jump right into game 3.
I like the skepticism there, Tom. You're never quite sure where stuff's going with LG, so you don't want to write it down in stone. But this game 3, man, this is a big one for LG. They got to find some kind of way to hold on, because what a rough loss that last one was.
It was, and despite Neilmah playing so well on the Sylvanas, I think a lot of it came down to this Raijin, LG making those adaptations, taking it for themselves. Oceans, not the most pleasant Agni game, but honestly, no one from LG had a pleasant game in the last one.
Right.
So it's going back to the drawing board, complete switch up of their ideas now. Sobek and Athena combination is like the 1-2 Guardian punch of yesteryear.
Yeah, it certainly looks as though this is our first Athena pick. I don't recall us having another one yet, so very excited to see this. And we haven't seen as much of Athena. I've actually been a bit surprised that we haven't, maybe because she can be kind of low pressure at times, and early pressure has seemed rather important. But confound the taunt, it still taunts people in, man. That's still a real good late game when you got a bunch of damage.
I mean, it basically does the same thing as an Erlang ultimate initiation, right?
Yeah, that's right.
On a much shorter cooldown.
Except it's a regular old cooldown. Good point there, as it is going to be Xaliea on the Sobek in solo, Kiki playing the Athena in support, so everything going about where we would have expected it to. I do like, though, that this Camazotz has become a nice flex pick for SK, where early on, not 100% sure where that's going anymore, as Sam and Bellair have now both played it.
And they had the opportunity as SK Gaming to lock in Achilles if they wanted to run that back for Sanford Soccer, but hey, he had a remarkable Game 1 Mercury performance. 100% win rate for Mercury, so the livelihood of that statistic is in Sanford Soccer's hands today.
Hard to think of much better hands. Maybe you could think of some slightly better ones, or they wouldn't be better by a lot, as Zapman and Neil battle it out. Get to come by their lead the honest way this time without that Sylvanas on her pressure for a free lane, though Jingwei Athena doesn't exactly scream pressure to me either, so it shouldn't be too bad.
It's looking like Neilmah gonna intercept some shots, but yeah, Kiki gonna receive some of his own there, but at least having the clear now to stack up Neilmah and Zapman. Not the most pressure compared to their Sylvanas on her performance.
Okay, so everybody's going to be going to their own farm, it looks like. No, they got to defend here, the actual wave. I do want to talk a bit about Paul on this Vulcan, because this has been something of a comfort pick for him in Season 6. It's felt like something he spent some time on. And Tolly, what do you think it is he likes about this Vulcan so much?
I think it's just about his flexibility. He doesn't have to be close at all to be contributing to the action with how long of a distance that ultimate covers. And on top of it, it's really unexpected burst damage. And what it really comes down to, I believe, is the similarities of the knockups between Vulcan and Hebo.
The knockup is pretty good, and it's something he's familiar with as Mollusk gets some trouble. He dashes away with the Deathbane, but Oceans is coming here to give his team a numbers advantage, a little bit ahead of Paul, but already the disengage is there safely from SK. But that doesn't mean that Luminosity get to hold on to their purple.
And if that was Paul playing the Raijin, he would have got there earlier. It's basically the clear factor, whereas Oceans actually ignores a wave, and Paul doing a good job zoning him away. Oceans still only sitting at level 2. LG now wanting to fall behind, call over their mid laner a little preemptively.
Perhaps so, as now Mollusk in trouble yet again. Deathbane, though, remains an effective escape tool, and Mollusk is able to retreat. But I do want to point out in that last fight, a quite a bit was used. Kiki used the sprint. It looks like Joshy's beat has been forced out earlier than that too. And the blink down from Mollusk as well. So perhaps SK coming out a little bit in favor, at least in terms of relics.
That's right. Only beads used out of Paul. So if you're looking at that number-wise, it's the 3-to-1 advantage. SK Gaming have quite a window to play with, knowing that Shell is still available for Neilmah if they want to be a little bit aggressive. That red buff due to respawn in about 30 seconds.
Man, it must be nice, though, to not already be down 2 kills in the duo lane this early after what they had to experience last time. So LG can hopefully take a deep breath, try and recover from last game. And sometimes it can be hard to mentally shake the state of the game. When you play from ahead for so long or play from behind so long, you can carry that into the next game. Hopefully LG could take a breather and completely shake that off.
Well, when we were looking at their player cams before Game 3 started, it looked like they were in good spirits.
It did, yes.
It didn't look like they hated everything about life there. They were smiling, making jokes, laughing a little bit, and that's what makes good team synergy build up, the way you can handle losses, not only in the battlefield, but outside of them as well.
And I think that's what Kiki was looking for. He managed to find not only 4 other really good players, but 4 other good players who I think can stay relatively light in some of these scenarios, at least for the most part. And that's important too, right? Is that they can work together and have some fun together too. Because we are playing games here. It's fun is certainly involved, even though it can be serious. Is Kiki in trouble? There's the long range old Vulcan ultimate. You called it, my man. Sam for soccer finds first blood.
And what a power spike play, finishing off Book of Thoth before that gank even happened. So that Vulcan ultimate doing even more damage at the end of it all.
That is real good timing, isn't it? As you expect Paul to be perfectly accurate on those. A very impressive game last time on the Raijin. We don't see godlikes very often where you're getting something like 14 kills unanswered. So very, very, very strong performance from him. He's keeping it going already here on the Vulcan.
And it's really unfortunate for Oceans, the fact that he is behind experience-wise because of that required rotation to mitigate the aggressive duo lane. It's a call that LG made, and unfortunately for Oceans, it was the sacrificial play for him, where he couldn't even be there to save the Athena.
That's one more way, man, that you can get some pressure off of your duo lane being ahead, which is when those rotations maybe are forced, or you can't rotate as often as the other mid laner, whichever way it ends up breaking. You're right, that genesis of it is that the Hachiman Fafnir were ahead a little bit over the Jing Athena.
Now, I'm not saying that play or rotation was bad by any means, because you can't allow SK Gaming the consistent invades of the red or the purple buff. So denying that goes a long way in terms of preventing snowballs from happening. But now SK Gaming, whatever they do on the left, they always seem to mirror it on the right side, Finch.
This reminds me of Game 1, where they were there for the blue buff invades a couple times. Now, if it is the same as Game 1, they'll do this maybe, 2 more times or so, and then right around that 10-minute mark, they're back over here ganking on the left-hand side.
It's like a pull and a push mechanism that they've got all over LG, and as a Sobek solo laner, you are relying on that blue buff for the sustain. You could always use lurking in the water, sure, but without that ultimate, that could open the door for Sam for Soccer to potentially gank that lane.
It's a very nice safety factor. We've seen it used several times to get you back out of danger when danger calls, so as nice as it can be used that way, you don't want to have to. As Bellair still pilots the Camazotz Blackthorn Hammer rush this time, which is curious. I think we saw him do Glad Shield earlier, so he's changing the build up a little bit.
A little bit of health is just more standard whenever you're dealing with the magical damage dealers. You're not having protections of any kind, but you still have the health, so you cover both options. When you're dealing with a magical guardian, the soul lane, and then a physical jungler, also getting Glad Shields for the protections is very lackluster against the Serqet jungle, knowing that protections isn't going to help against Last Breath, knowing that the sustain you get from that item isn't going to work during the debuff.
That's exactly it. I'm glad to see Bellair being willing to adjust these builds based on exactly the matchup that he's in. I wonder if we'll see the same thing from Xaliea, because remember, he went with that Shield of Regrowth that you don't always see, and perhaps he'll have to make an adjustment, as Mollusk was lurking for exactly this moment to go in, but the minions block the Cobra's Kiss, so Bellair can comfortably continue to battle. It will cost him the battle to hell, but he's A-okay.
Mala's not able to hit that Cobra's Kiss. Cost him a kill potentially. If they caught Bellair with the Cobra's Kiss into the last breath. That might have been enough damage to at least force Bellair to back preemptively, knowing that his teleport is only coming up in 60 seconds. That could have denied him some experience if all of LG pushed at least one wave under that solo tower.
Oh, what a surprise. Sanford is here for the spawn of the blue buff. He finds himself a nice stun on Xaliea, but Kikisocheeky also here. That's what an Athena could do, but no one helped Mollusk. Sam knocks his lights out. That's another kill for SK.
Neilmah doesn't need a global ultimate to make his presence felt on the opposite side of the map, and the presence of this Fafnir with his shell made it so easy and effortless, it seemed, to make that blue buff so successful. What a great sonic boom, where the initial target was onto Xaliea, but with no beads onto Mollusk, he becomes the next juicy target instead.
And Xaliea, I think, kind of stayed just inside the pit enough to where a sonic boom I don't think would have been able to catch him, so at least good to make sure they didn't both end up getting hit. But like you said, it doesn't matter if it's only Mollusk, because it's exactly who you want with no beads, so they do a great job capitalizing there, since he went with this greedy, or, you know, wanting to be aggressive with the blink early, obviously, and couldn't quite find it.
He just can't find the openings quite yet because his dual lane's getting pushed under their tower. They're losing blue buffs repeatedly. He needs to look for some opening, but Bellair tanky with the Blackthorn's hammer, and Sanford is creating enough space between himself and Mollusk that he can't engage on. Are you really going to commit onto a Fafnir that's going to Draconic form and have a second jump to disengage?
Right.
The options aren't the easiest for Mollusk to decide.
Well, whatever the call is, LG have to make sure they're there, because likely this next blue buff will be contested again. They do have, it looks like, a ward. That's actually from SK to make sure they'll have some information on who's there. So a nice bit of extra information in their favor. But LG, maybe you have to rotate Oceans or something over to it next time just to try and make sure.
Well, that's kind of what got them into trouble last time when Oceans rotated on the left side of the map. So if you stretch him a little bit too far, you maybe keep the team fights at 3-on-3. Allow Oceans and Paul just a 1v1 in the mid lane.
Sure.
And I don't think Oceans is going to be looking for anything offensive. He just needs to play catch-up in terms of the farm. Already 2 levels behind now with Paul just ticking to level 10.
Well, Sam is here for it, but no one else is rotated. Kiki is also here for the blue buff this time, but Bellair has them busy underneath the tier 1 tower. That means Sam is free to strip away the blue buff yet again. Another successful invade. Meanwhile, SK defend their purple and left.
Zapman using the mounted archery to bully Mollusk out of his lane. The last breath wasn't even used there, so he's just trying to hold his ground and keep the Serqet in check, as purple buff did go the way of Neilmah. Sanford feigning as if he's about to sonic boom into that mid lane, but Joshy could be the one forcing the issue instead.
That was a good ultimate, but an even better one from Neilmah. Well timed. He got the stun and avoided the damage coming in for Defender of Olympus. And now Kiki's been locked down, and Zapman right here waiting. Had to repeat a game 1. A nice kill set up by Neil.
Oh, a sonic boom clips Mollusk without the purification beats. Can't get out of that one. And with those 2 clean picks, I think this is going to be a goal, Fury Finch.
I think it could be. Paul has held on to his ultimate, so that's the best secure on the map right now if he times that one correctly. The old Fury pulled right on in, and even though Joshy's on Jing Wei, there's no way for him to make it in time. This one's not free, though. Well earned off 2 nice picks in the jungle.
Oh, absolutely. Mollusk dies yet again with last breath. He just can't seem to get it off before dying, and there is a window where you could use it to get yourself CC immunity. He got initially clipped on the sonic boom, so I don't fault him for not using it before that, but between the sonic boom and the special delivery, he was walking around and you could find a little bit of a window, so he needs to at least use it onto somebody if LG want to get an answer back, because that does so much damage.
Joshy happily trading here in the 2v1. He knows he can get some help, but he actually can't. Kiki's ultimate's down, so yeah, that's just airstrike forced out there, so maybe a little bit more careful in the future, though. I have yet to see Joshy shy away from a fight so far, so
I agree.
Maybe I'm not surprised.
And Zapman only taking that fight knowing that Neilmah is right next to him, because the item curve doesn't favor Zapman. He's only sitting on tier 2 Devil Gloves.
Sam for soccer in trouble. Mollusk ends up coming back in, and that means he gets blown up by the big ultimate.
Oh my goodness. The synergy between Paul and Sam.
They're on another level,
Paul going to use his beads. That could open for Oceans to maybe use his ultimate actually right then and there, but no real follow-up after the fact. No beads on Mollusk. no life. The zoning ultimate. Even if that ultimate doesn't hit, there's still going to be a special delivery on top of Mollusk under that tier 1 tower.
But Paul is now into some trouble. Taunted back into the Taiko drums, and that's a nice return kill to get LG on the board for the first time. They needed something to slow Paul down. No more godlikes for you. That chain has already been broken. The red buff, though, Neil looks like he wants to try and steal, but he will not have a chance. And I'm rhyming by accident.
I don't fault you. There's no accidents. There's only happy little mistakes. Or
yeah, no mistakes, only happen to
There you go.
There, yeah.
That's what it is. There's great pressure from SK Gaming all across, but you can't disrespect LG because they will make you pay.
Oceans is in trouble. Sam drops the ultimate and cuts right through. Now Kiki low 2. Is there already crit coming out as he gets blown up? Bellair finds another.
There's going to be 2 clean picks and a speed buff, and this is a calculated engage out of SK Gaming. Despite Paul dying, they know there's no last breath, no Taiko drums, no Defender of Olympus, and without those 3 ultimates, easy sonic boom for the lads, finding an easy kill into Oceans.
And now a Pyromancer. That one's pretty easy for him as well, as SK have always been able to turn these advantages into something on the map. Red buff invades, blue buff invades, gold furies or something. Now it's the Pyromancer. They're not just fighting for no reason, Tolly.
Bellair might get chased out by Xaliea despite having a 2-level disadvantage. The thing is, the Vampire Bats was a little bit off the mark as Zapman going to use that mounted archery right before the last breath. And now Xaliea overcommitting.
Yeah, Xaliea now in some trouble. He's gifted his life away at this point. And I like the idea initially by chasing out Bellair, but he just didn't have enough information about where everyone else was on the map. So when he ends up falling, another kill they'll give over to Sam. Maybe he'll chase the godlike this time, as he has the short sword already. Last time he built this right into a rage. No reason to expect any different this time as another one comes out.
I understand the mindset that Xaliea had where the Vampire Bats missed from Bellair and there was kill potential or maybe potential to force out the ultimate.
I think that's what he wanted, yeah.
But like, just forcing out the ultimate from a Camazotz is not worth your own life.
Unfortunately, ends up with a bad trade as Bellair finds Mollusk. Meanwhile, Zapman just trying to live long enough for his team to get here, and they're now on their way. A big shell comes through to keep him alive, and now Kiki has stepped too far forward. The rest of SK collapse, and he goes down.
They just can't find anything, Finch. Even onto Zapman, that's just in no man's land. Ocean's going to be able to dodge that just narrowly under his own tier 1 tower, and they thought Zapman was out of position, knowing that he had no mounted archery, but Neilmah just at the right place at the right time. Joshy, he sniffed that one out.
He still gets caught down. I think he might have expected Sam, but not Neil. It's just too much from them, Tolly.
Oh my goodness. Now, no purification beats onto Joshy Jingwei. Very calculated yet again from SK Gaming, because whether or not either of those abilities hit Joshy, the idea is they're buying enough time to allow Zapman to get that tier 1 tower. So best case scenario, Joshy lives, but the tier 1 tower still falls.
And this is what I was saying last time about how scary SK Gaming is, because it really wasn't that much Sam last time. It was Paul and Neil and Zapman, and this time, I'm not saying they've been quiet, but they're not lighting it up the way they did in Game 2, but Sam is. It's just they pass this baton around and just play whoever the hot hand is.
Oh, Paul gonna get last breath after the purification beats. The egg is buying him a moment, and with the Taiko drums, finally will take a spill. The poison does spread to the archers as it hits Zapman, but you don't really care if you're SK Gaming, trading the life of Paul for Mollusk and Kikisocheeky.
So, critically, they keep Sam alive, so the 7-0-4 chain continues. And oh, look at the timing. Right when the Primal Fury respawns, and they've already pushed out Joshy earlier. No way in for Oceans. This is free, and look at those crits coming through. It's too much between the Mercury and the Hachiman. They burn it quickly.
The attack speed strategy from SK Gaming is working out. The Hachiman, Fafnir, Mercury, Shogun's Kusari for the Fafnir onto Neilmah. That objective that went down at 15 minutes is only going to go down faster on the right side of the map as this Mercury is building its crit.
Oceans and Mollusk might have a chance to catch out Bellair, who stepped too far forward. The Oceans immediately thunder crashes away defensively. Aegis is forced out, and now Neil is here. Good stun as well, and that's right into Bellair's damage. Even with 2 members there, they still couldn't keep him alive.
Kiki couldn't ulti the right target. I think somebody intercepted it and just got in front of him. Xaliea now trying to get out of danger there. The special delivery a little bit off the mark, but Kiki now forced to dash away. All of SK Gaming still looking for another pick.
Sonic Boom comes through, but great reaction time from Joshy to go into the airstrike immediately. That gets him out of there. That could have been a much worse situation, but they're going to lose their speed again. Totally, there's nothing they can do. Even the Tier 2 tower under some threat.
SK just looking so clean with their engages because of the lead. That's the damage Paul is bringing. He's only level 16, Finch.
Zapman finds Kiki. Two more members go down, and the Tier 2 tower will follow. Mollusk at least able to strip away the speed on the opposite side. And SK Gaming rethink aggressing into the Phoenix. They've got Bellair on right. This Tier 1 can go down. There's some farm to grab too.
I'm not going to say what LG should be doing in their future games here, but honestly, it's looking like they can't do much against SK Gaming in this entire set, realistically. Playing defense in game number 2 was their best efforts, but here in game number 3, they took the Raijin away from Paul, and then Paul brings out the Vulcan. Sanford Soccer, playing a late game hyper carry now, has been just augmented with all this attack speed from Neilmah. And Zapman playing well as well, so that he doesn't have to worry about that dueling. Gives him so many blue buff invading opportunities, and LG just can't answer, whether it's the composition, whether it's the rotations, because Ocean's tried to rotate to stop that initial pressure, and they just can't seem to make anything happen. And now, yet again, with a deficit, Xaliea trying to force this down against the Fire Giant SK squad.
It's Neilmah that gets pulled back in, but Fafnir able to transform and get that second jump to disengage, so that means Ocean's ultimate is essentially wasted. He finds very little on the back end. SK don't get the Tier 2, but they do find a clean disengage, and Bellair might even make up for it with a Tier 2 and left.
He's not even present on the right side of the map, which is what allowed LG to be slightly aggressive. Another 1,500 gold in the pockets of SK Gaming with a very commanding 16,500 gold lead.
Mollusk has already dropped his bead. He's forced to jump away. Meanwhile, Zapman has a fight he'd love to take up against Xaliea, who thinks better of it. Level 14 Joshy cannot afford to stick around here. He'll also leave.
Yeah, it's not looking too good here as Bellair now forced to retreat in a 1v4. I'm not sure if he actually wants to retreat, knowing that Sanford Soccer right around this corner. Seeing if he can maybe get a solo kill onto Joshy. 2 abilities, just casually taking out 40% of Joshy's health pool.
Very strong. This is Camazotz in the solo lane. And you were talking about what can LG do differently in their future games. It's so hard, isn't it? I mean, you want to just say, hey, don't give up early pressure, but then SK can get it from so many places. They just manufactured it in duo lane in game 2, or Sam will go find it from the blue buff invades on right. It's so many different areas where SK can look to put you behind that you can't just say don't fall. I mean, that's not an answer.
So it's about the confidence. LG aren't playing with the confidence that Mollusk is known to be playing with.
Sure.
He needs to get off early, and he needs to play aggressive gods. He can't play Hun Bats because there's no early game momentum for the style that Mollusk needs to bring to allow LG these victories.
Right. He's kind of been restricted a little bit in his normal style. As SK just kind of do it better, they now aggress into the Phoenix in mid, but pushing without a strong minion wave did hurt them last time, so they got to make sure they play this safe. They don't have Sylvanas to stay.
They don't, but they have a Vulcan that can easily shoot from a safe distance, even taking some shots at Kiki through the wall, or at least trying to, channeling the ability of the Sonic Boom of Sanford Soccer, looking for that right moment.
Well, the minion wave has made it in, so now's the time. Mollusk goes in first, so Sam can't find him with the special delivery. Neil transforms, which means Coerce will now be coming out for the team. It only lands on the Bellair, I believe, but Sprint means it's time to go in. Neilmah finds a stun. Joshy has to use Aegis just to get away, and a nice knockup comes through, but Xaliea still stands tall to force them all out.
The Vulcan ultimate off the mark, but the rest of Paul's abilities are in Ocean's using that Aegis trying to survive, and a double out of the Vulcan middle. 5 on 3. SK Gaming looking to close out the set.
Neil finds Joshy, so that's one more that goes down. Kiki and Mollusk have got to find some way to keep this Titan standing, but totally I don't think they can do it. Titan down below half HP. Kiki entirely out of HP. Bellair completes the deicide, and that's it. SK Gaming 3-0, 20 minutes on the clock. They take the set.
What a clean performance out of SK Gaming. Really flexing on them with every single player having an outstanding performance, and I'd say all 3 games, it was difficult for LG to respond to this early game pressure between the dual lane from SK, between Sanford Soccer's rotation. Paul was able to out-farm Oceans quite heavily, especially that last game, because they put Oceans in this really awkward position where it's like, hey, we're losing the dueling, we need your assistance. And then that allowed Paul to hit level 5, look for that Vulcan ultimate right on top of Kiki. And his ultimates have been looking really good too, because he denied that one initial mid lane gank onto Mollusk.
It's been very, very impressive play from SK. You can see him coming in, showing some perspective to this LG team who didn't make it easy for them. They were able to drag out some of game 2 as well to a little bit later than you would have expected. But for the most part, I mean, this was just, what, an hour and a half of all SK, just from start to finish.
And despite how much of a lead they had in the left side of the lane, because of the Guardian picks for Xaliea consistently, it didn't matter what Bellair was playing, whether it was the Achilles or 2 of the 3 of the games of the Camazotz. The blue buff was also getting pressured, so LG couldn't really juggle all the lanes and hold on to them all. It was just all collapsing under them.
And that's what I'm loving so much about Season 6 so far, is that it's all up in the air. Earlier, we saw LG pull a game off a top team, but this time they came in and SK just put the clamps on them and had it from start to finish. It's so hard to tell at any given moment which one of these teams truly is the strongest. You just got to watch them actually play it out on the battlefield. So that's what's so exciting about it. Let's get it back over to the desk, though. I need them to break it down.
And break it down we will. Tom and Taco here, TNT, bringing you the dynamite. And SK Gaming certainly set us up for it.
And I think it was a pretty explosive match for Bellair, yet again, coming out of this solo lane and just having such a I don't want to say impact again, but like I've been having to say that 3 games in a row now. He's just doing it all. And this Camazotz pick, if there's one thing that other teams can take away from the SK set today, it might be to keep Ronnie off of the Kama.
I mean, that's the thing, is that you keep Ronnie off the camera, the Camazotz. Sam will take it. And I think that's really scary when you have 2 players, because Sam played this in game number 2 and looked really strong. When you have multiple players on the same pick, that's unique, right? A number of teams have played the Camazotz to great power, but it's usually specifically with the King Arthur. SK just goes, hey, Camazotz is first pick, and that's what we're doing, and that's what they did. 7-0-9 for Sammy on the Mercury, 5-0-6 for Bellair on the Camazotz, and then Zapman, as Clutch would say, 3-0-8. Only 2 deaths, and they came in the mid lane.
I think it's just a classic example of the true snowball effect taking place here. I mean, when you have that much pressure residing from solo lane alone, you can just expect that the trickle-down effect is eventually going to take over, and that was eventually the case. Sam is getting every single jungle camp that he could possibly desire, and some. And then not only that, but Paul also, I think, able to kind of stay in mid lane and just free farm. That was really all it came down to. Like, Paul was never aggressed onto. Zapman was hardly ever aggressed into. It was always SK being the proactive ones, being the initiators, and it didn't leave any gaps for Luminosity to look for that recovery.
You mentioned Snowball. As far you can hear the squad very excited about their recent victory. We'll get to the interview in just a moment, but you mentioned the snowball effect with respect to like the individual game. Well, I'll zoom out and talk about the macro snowball effect. 20 minutes for game number 3. Game number 1, everybody kind of plays well. Game number 2, Zapman goes on her, let's do it, baby, and just him and Paul just run the game. And then game number 3, I mean, 20-minute victory. Run SKG, as the hashtag says. These guys absolutely looked really, really strong. And something Neilmah told me over the weekend was, the difference between being like a middle of the pack team and number 1 is about 4 months of practice. And guess how much time SK had to practice in between Worlds and now? About 4 months of practice.
Well, to also be fair and kind of add on to that statement from Neil, I think that if you're going to try and align yourself as one of the dominating teams right now, you also can't afford to take this set in any other fashion except a 3-0.
Absolutely. LG on the L side of things. The W goes to SK Gaming. Standing by, it's the duo lane.
We've got the duo lane here. Zapman and Neilmah, the ones that really went off in game number 2. I mean, I just got to ask, guys, what was it that you think helped you guys look so dominant in this set? I mean, a 3-0, and it never really looked like they had any answers.
I think the set against E United kind of opened the light to us. We were just like, there's a lot of things we had to work on, and we were harping it real hard in scrims this week. And nonstop, every scrim, we worked on our comms, our engages, our synergy, playing safe in the backline, things like that. And I think all that hard work pretty much just showed up in this set.
going into the set against Luminosity, what do you think, or rather, explain to us, the fans at home rather, what the primary goal of this set for you guys was? Because to me, looking at the bans, you focused on Mollusk with the Ratatasker. Was that your original plan going into it?
We just don't really want to get momentum rolling. Rat's a pretty early game aggressive god, and I think versus teams that we feel we should beat, the easiest way to win is just to get behind early and play on the back foot. So we just wanted to start off, get out of the early game, be at least even, and then from there we knew we could take the game.
Well, on this team, Sam and Paul get a lot of the attention, right? And I think deservedly so after the way they played Season 5. How nice is it for you guys to have a performance like Game 2, where you two in particular just kind of made that win happen, feels like, with the early pressure, and show everybody you guys can still do it too?
It feels good, man. I mean, the Zapman duo lane is for real, you know? And honestly, I think a lot of the changes in Season 6 help out the duo lane. The Spirit Man getting level 2 early, you can make that aggressive level 2 play if the other team's not ready for it. There's just a lot more tools at our disposal to make a lot more plays.
Piggybacking off of Finch's question for game number 2 for you, Neilmah, despite the great early game success, how does it feel watching your Hunter jump into a middle Phoenix on that left side siege?
Feels good, man. I mean, that's why you have in the lane. You take the bad with the good, and as long as he's going in, he's showing a little bit of machismo over there. You know, I don't mind it.
Neil should have blinked in with me, man.
I should have, yeah.
So you got to have his back in those situations. Well, again, congratulations to you guys off a really big set win. It's great to see you guys looking this good, and good luck in your next matches as well.
Awesome, thank you.
We support players, man. They never want to suicide with me. And just don't get it.
I love it. You might have heard some noise in the background. That was me. I'm just losing it. These guys are really fun. Neilmah and Zapman, always good to see them. And I love that question asked in the post-game interview saying, like, listen, Sam and Paul got a lot of the spotlight. Y'all did it. How does that feel? And it is cool to see. Again, what I consider a team victory here for SK Gaming, able to take this one in 3 games and 3 very easy to watch the succession continue on.
And it's going to be exciting, I think, watching Zap and Neil as they continue to move forward. But it seems as though they're really excited for a lot of these Season 6 changes that have already taken place. Zap already mentioning, in fact, that, you know, there's a lot more diversity. There's a lot of different variables that might start to play into factors that could really make things interesting in Season 6.
SK Gaming take this victory as far as the standings are concerned. We'll see where it all shakes up. Number 1, still Team Dignitas, 3-0, and E United undefeated as well. SK Gaming are 2-2, but again, an emphatic win against Luminosity, who might be the bottom of the league. But as Neil said, if you're going to win this game, this is a statement game, and I certainly think they made a statement.
But keep an eye out, because tomorrow we'll get a chance to finally see Splice and all that they've had to offer, but with a little bit of a clause there, because it is going to be with the sub Solo Retrol. But Solo Retrol, I mean, he's a good enough player. I think he can definitely fit the bill.
SOT can certainly hold his own as far as that's concerned. Hi-Res Expo is still going to be the keynote as far as our league is concerned. You can go to highresexpo.com and go ahead and get things early. And here, I mean, it really all just comes down to that every single season. But I love this season in particular because this is a marathon. These games count. If you're going to be at Hi-Res Expo later on as a competitor, you better be winning now. So seeing these 2-2 records going to be very different as the year goes on.
And all these teams that I think are getting their first kind of glimpses towards what it's like to go the full 5-game series. It's not just, you know, where it doesn't just wear down the players.
Sure.
I think that there's a lot of like mental fatigue that can definitely come into effect here, but it's fun, I think, from a public standpoint, seeing the adjustments that are constantly being made.
Yeah, much can I be frank? Better games. I'm just a big fan of what we get out of the 5-game set. More stories, more metas, and more exciting days. That's going to put an end to our Thursday here. Tomorrow, the 19th, as Taco said, we get a chance to see Splice. You're not going to want to miss it. Until then, on behalf of everybody here behind the scenes, and of course you guys, peace and much love to you.
The Smite Pro League, brought to you by Skillshot, Hi-Res Studios, Titan Forge, INAP, Steel Series, and Respawn.